Hey, look at that. The Houston Texans with just enough to win against the Buffalo Bills 23-20. The Texans move to 4-1 after beating one of the contenders in the AFC in the Buffalo Bills. Kaimi Fairbairn good from 59 to win that one in walk-off fashion for the Texans. It should not have been this close. Let's get into it. The four big takeaways from this one. And we start with what was probably the most complete half of football the Texans have played this season. They kicked tail on defense, holding the Bills to just 3 points in the first half. They were fantastic with their defense in the first half. They were confusing Josh Allen. They were hitting him. They were physical with the Bills. The Bills had one drive where they kind of moved things on the ground, but outside of that, the Texans took care of their business there in the first half on defense. And then on offense, they were excellent. And CJ Stroud hit the big play to Nico Collins. They moved the ball well throughout the first half of play. Really, my only gripe with the first half was the decision to go for it on fourth down. Dare Ogunbowale catches the ball, comes up short after the officials spot him short on third down, and then the Texans hurry up and go for it on fourth down, hand it to Ogunbowale. He doesn't get it. He gets stuffed well short of the first down. I felt like the Texans should have challenged that play, challenged the spot, and while they're challenging, regardless of the result, they figure out what they want to do. Hey, if they are successful and get the first down, you keep the offense out there, you keep it rolling. If you're unsuccessful, do you go for it? And if you do go for it, call one of your better plays, not a hurry up. I understand what they were trying to do, get the Bills with too many men on the field, but Buffalo got their guys off the field and then stuffed the run play. And that was really one of my only gripes with the first half. Stroud was excellent at one point. He had a perfect passer rating. Yeah, the first little bit where Dare Ogunbowale continuously touched the ball wasn't great, but they got going, got moving down the field, put the ball in the end zone on the ground, actually, which was a lot of fun to see. And obviously the huge play to Nico Collins. That was his final play of the game because he came up limp there at the end of the big touchdown from CJ Stroud. But the first half was overall pretty excellent and probably the most complete half of football that the Texans have played and put together as a team. It was very, very good. And that gave them a little margin for error. And my goodness, did they need every bit of it, because big takeaway number two was a disaster in the second half. Yes, they get the field goal to open, but the penalties started showing up. After a half of football where they didn't have any penalties, they had penalties. Dalton Schultz had a really questionable, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. They had a defensive holding that kept things going for Buffalo. Jalen Petrie crushed Josh Allen as Allen was sliding and got a 15-yard penalty. The penalties started showing up. The pass rush for Buffalo, which wasn't getting home and looked like the Texans had handled things pretty well, started to get home. Kenyon Green, Blake Fisher, Shaq Mason, Scruggs, Tunsil. It started to kind of work for Buffalo. They were able to put a little pressure on CJ Stroud. They got the field goal to start the second half. They got the field goal to end the second half, and it was bleh in between. It was ugly in between. Too much running for no gains. Too much of a rushing attack for no gains. CJ Stroud was off a little bit. That interception was tough. That took points off the board because even if they don't get into the end zone, they're well within Kaimi Fairbairn's field goal range. The fumble is tough. Comes right after Dare Ogunbowale drops a pass that hits him in the hands. Fisher gets beat. They poke the ball away from CJ Stroud. That puts 3 points on the board for Buffalo. Great job by the defense to hold in that situation. Robert Woods puts them deep in their own territory because he decides to field a punt at the 2. And then at the end, when the Texans had full control of the football game, okay, full control of the football game. The Bills have no more timeouts. The Texans have the ball on third down. If they run the football, they're in control of when the game ends and how the game ends. They're going to kick the ball with Kaimi Fairbairn. At that point, they had a 50-ish or so, 56 or so yard field goal. But there in the fourth quarter, with about 44 seconds left, they decided to throw the ball on 3rd and 5 at the Buffalo 39. CJ Stroud gets called for a grounding, and they lose yards and have to punt the football. That was an atrocious call. They should not have been putting the ball in the air. If they're deciding to put the ball in the air, you have to throw a pass that is complete and will get you some sort of yardage. But what they should have done there was run the football, set it up for Kaimi Fairbairn, let the clock run all the way down, and call a timeout. Ultimately, their final field goal was longer than if they just done nothing on third down and kicked the field goal. Again, they were in full control of the game at that point. Now, it shouldn't have gotten to that point. It shouldn't have been 20-20 Buffalo and needed a field goal there at the end. The defense, which had been pretty solid through most of the day, they held on well there at the end, but Kamari Lassiter has a play where he's got to make that tackle. A couple of missed tackles here and there, and Buffalo moved the ball pretty well there at times there in the second half. But again, 20 points to this Buffalo Bills offense, and I know they're missing one of their key players over on offense and Khalil Shakir, but 20 points to Buffalo, to Josh Allen, to Superman at the quarterback spot. That is more than a good enough job for the defense. The offense has got to put that together, but some punts, the fumble, the interception when they were moving the ball. And, man, that pass rush for Buffalo got going, and the Texans' offensive line didn't have an answer. They didn't run the football particularly well there in the second half, which I guess maybe lends itself to throwing the ball at one point. In that third down, I still don't agree with that. You're never going to get me to agree with that, especially because it ended up causing them a penalty. They didn't burn any clock, and if they had made the field goal, then the Bills would have had time, with no timeouts, but they would have had time to at least try to get a field goal of their own, even if that was just an incomplete pass and it wasn't a intentional grounding. But that was a poor idea to throw the football there. I didn't love throwing the football there with 7 seconds left either. It was a 5-second play. CJ Stroud running around just finds Dare Ogunbowale for a few yards, and they get Kaimi Fairbairn right into his range. But the second half, not good. One of the more Texans that we have seen through most of this year, second halves for the Texans after an excellent first half. So you got to figure out how to marry those two. It's almost as if the Texans felt like, we're kicking the Bills' butts. We're going to keep doing a lot of that and be able to take care of business against Buffalo. That was not the case there. A good part of this one, and a big takeaway from this one, is the defense had an incredible game plan, and they came ready to play. Man, they were thumping the Bills. Kamari Lassiter had a big hit. Azeez Al-Shire was flying around the field. Henry To'oTo'o had a big hit. Foley Fatukasi had a big hit. They beat up Josh Allen. Yes, he even left the game after a big hit, but they were hitting him every chance they got in this one. And when the Bills were getting the ball out there over the middle or out there to the receivers, out there to the tight ends, they were thumping. James Cook took a couple of big hits at the running back spot for the Bills as well. The defense came ready to play. They confused and disoriented Josh Allen. They didn't let his legs dominate them. They stayed home on a lot of their stuff. They covered extra time when Allen would scramble and get things going. Look, it's not a super talented Bills wide receiver group. Marquise Valdez-Scantling, Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, and Keon Coleman. That's not the best group in the world. So, you do give, take a little credit away from the Texans just because they're not going against an incredible amount of talent, but they took care of business. They forced Buffalo into some precarious spots as an offense, and the Bills weren't ready, and they took Buffalo out of their game plan a couple of times. I felt like James Cook was going to get going and stay going. They did a good job keeping him contained for most of the game. He had a really nice drive early on, but he didn't take over the game like it looked like he was going to at one point. The defense did an excellent job in this one and did more than enough to give the offense a chance and not allowing the Bills to get hardly any yards there at the end. I think it was 3 straight drives where the Bills had 0 yards. Let me double check that one on the fly there. Yeah, the Bills with 1 yard, no yards, and 1 first down, no first downs, no first downs, no yards on either of their final 2 drives. The defense was excellent for the Texans throughout most of this game. Had a moment here or there. We mentioned the Lassiter play where, that one just can't happen, and a missed tackle here or there, but that's going to happen throughout the course of a game, how you respond. And then to force the Bills to give the ball back to the Texans late in the game to set up the Kaimi Fairbairn field goal, that was a really good job by the defense. Just 16 seconds was that Bills' final offensive drive because the Texans were on their assignments and took care of business on that final drive. So really good job by the defense in this one. And they kept this offense in it after a stretch there where the offense started the second half of the field goal, into the second half of the field goal, and then kind of threw up on themselves in the middle. The defense cleaned up that throw up, got the offense in a position for the offense, and then ultimately the special teams to take care of business. Quick sidebar, special teams, little up and down day for the special teams. Robert Woods had a couple of nice returns. Liked the return there before the Caserio Fairbairn game-winning field goal. He knew that he had to get going, couldn't waste a bunch of time, get down, don't burn too much clock, but he had to get some yards, especially when they gave him a chance to return the kick. It was a returnable one, but I didn't love the catch on the 2-yard line. That wasn't any good. Tommy Townsend, he had a 33-yard punt. He had a 40-yard punt. He had a 61-yard punt. He pinned the Bills deep there late. So up and down day for him. And then Caserio Fairbairn was excellent. The Texans would be maybe a winless football team if they didn't have Caserio Fairbairn. If they had a lesser kicker, a much lesser kicker, they might be a winless football team. All right, big takeaway number 4. I'm finally realizing about the Bobby Slowik pendulum swings. I feel like sometimes you can explain away some of Bobby Slowik's issues, but I didn't love this game from a Slowik perspective. I didn't love how they started with a lot of Dare Gumbawale. Didn't love the 4th down play call. Didn't love throwing the ball there on 3rd down late in the 4th quarter with about 40-ish or so seconds left. Didn't love throwing it there with 7 seconds left. I would have preferred a run there. Ultimately, they got enough yards, but didn't love throwing it there. Didn't love some of the timing of some of the runs. I mean, they gave Dare Gumbawale a good amount of chances here in this one. 15 carries for 30 yards. Cam Akers was used sparingly here and there. The Tank Dell reverse went nowhere. And just some of it, look, he's dealing with some issues when Nico Collins goes out. You got to adjust on the fly there so you can explain it away a little bit. But, man, there's some moments where Slowik's getting it done. Like, they got it going there in the first half, and I was thinking to myself, hey, nobody's really pissed at Bobby Slowik here. And then there are some unfortunate first down runs or some unfortunate play calls here or there. Penalties stack up. The pass rush starts getting to the Texans, making things more difficult to operate. They threw the ball sideways a lot in this one. I mean, the Bills had one of the worst cornerbacks in football in their slot cornerback spot. And the Texans, I feel like, did not do enough to exploit that. Now, again, some of the stuff in the second half, the offensive line just got to play better and give them an opportunity. But, yeah, this was a pendulum game for Bobby Slowik. There's moments where he looks really good, and there's moments where, I don't love that from Bobby Slowik. And the consistency from him has got to be there at some point. And I got to imagine that the first time they play a complete football game, you're going to get a complete performance out of Bobby Slowik as well. I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's holding this team back, because I think some of the things that he is dealing with make it very difficult to operate, but he's got to start throwing some things in there. And if Nico Collins is gone for a few weeks with this hamstring issue, he's got to figure out how to operate this offense and get things going, get the ball to Diggs a little bit more, get the ball to Tank Dell a little bit more. Did like some of the play calls there in the second half. They removed the ball a little bit. Xavier Hutchinson had a nice one to overcome a 3rd and long after the Schultz unsportsmanlike conduct, which was kind of a crappy call. But Hutchinson out, it's like there's some moments where it's good. And I can't just say, oh, well, they didn't have Joe Mixon, so he's just falling apart, because they didn't have a really good rushing attack last year, and they were still able to get the ball in the air. And even then, as we're critical of Bobby Slowik and, hey, he didn't have a good day, they still threw for 300 yards as a team. And they probably could have put the Bills away. I mean, he didn't call an interception play for C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, he didn't fumble the football. So as much as you want to, get the pitchforks and the torches out for the offensive coordinator when you don't blow a team out, when you're maybe on your way to blowing a team out, there's some explanations for some of it. There's nuance to that offensive coordinator position. And if you want to sell your Bobby Slowik stock, it's pretty low right now, but I'll buy some of it. I'm not going to buy all your Bobby Slowik stock, but I'll buy some of it. I still believe that there's a lot that we haven't seen from this offense that is going to appear at some point, and part of that's going to be Bobby Slowik taking care of his business. What are your big takeaways from this one? Let me know in the comment section down below on your way down there. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget SNL, myself, Landry Locker from the Locker Room, Monday, 8 a.m. So that's tomorrow or today if you're watching this after midnight. 8 a.m. right here live on YouTube. You don't want to miss that 2-hour show, breaking everything down from this game. And, of course, check out Houston Football for the observations and more from this matchup, www.houfootball.com. And, of course, you can catch it in the link in the description down below as well. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.